Mr. President, at this juncture, I move that we dispense with the reading of the journal of the 61st session, Wednesday, May 6, 2026, and consider the same as approved. Mr. President, before we do that, may we, the gentleman from Cavite, Senator Ping Lacson, is seeking the floor. I move that he be recognized, yes. Mr. President.
Senator Lacson is
Thank you, Mr. President. Before we approve the journal, before we act on the motion of the acting majority leader, I have a parliamentary inquiry. Yesterday, two motions were made. The first one made by Senator Villanueva, citing in contempt of the Senate the NBI agents who allegedly tried to prevent Senator De La Rosa from attending yesterday's session. And the second one concerning the proposed amendments to the rules a motion made by Senator Marcoleta. On the first motion, Mr. President, I would just like to ask how my vote was counted.
Yeah. There was no division of the House.
I have a copy of the TSN of yesterday's session, Mr. President, and it says, which led to the, and I quote, in part, which led to the body's unanimous consent to move that we cite in contempt those individuals running after Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa. Mr. President, as per our rules, particularly Rule 41, Section 117, it says here, the vote of a senator absent from the session at the moment he is called to vote shall not be counted. At that time, we were at the lounge along with Senator Tito Soto, Senator Risa, Senator Kiko, and Senator Mix. We were at the lounge and we were monitoring the proceedings, the ongoing session. And to say that my vote is counted along with the others, because it says here unanimous, that's why I stood up before we approved the journal, Mr. President.
For a full explanation of that, I will refer to the Committee on Rules, because to my knowledge, that is the tradition of this chamber. When we pass resolutions and there's no objection, whoever is present during that time is counted as to have voted for it. That has been the tradition even during the time of Senator Soto.
Thank you, Mr. President.
But if that is the inquiry, so that we can set straight our rules and the records, if the gentleman wishes, I will refer to the Committee on Rules and ask them to report out maybe by Monday.
Thank you, Mr. President. Except that Rule 41, as I mentioned, Section 117, maliwanag po sinasabi, pagka wala yung senador sa session hall at the moment he is called to vote, shall not be counted.
Yes. Which, for example, the resolution against the Chinese ambassador, many of us weren't in the session hall. Pero nung sinabing no objection, kinount din lahat. So, in many periods. But I see the gentleman's point, and if we want to be accurate, then let's ask the Committee on Rules, which includes the minority, to come out with a better formulation.
Let it be placed on record, Mr. President, that my manifestation does not in any way showing sympathy with the NBI agents who grappled with our colleague here. In the first place, Senator De La Rosa is a fellow cavalier, not to mention a former subordinate in the defunct Presidential Anti-Organized Crime Task Force, and he's a fellow senator.
That's very,
so, just to
that's very well taken. And for the record, Senator Lacson has always stood up if he thinks that there's a misapplication of the rules. But just on that point of the NBI, I think we're far from going into the whole truth, because early this morning, I think 7 a.m., I was watching the videos. I saw, I do not know whose vehicle it is, but it's a white vehicle with 7. Lumalabas ng Senate, pinipilit nung NBI na ocular inspection at tignan sa loob, which is a violation if you do it anywhere in the country but right outside our gates. So although we agreed with the NBI director for fact-finding, I think this issue is far from over. So I thank you, Senator Lacson, for making that nuance that you are talking about the rules, not the sentiment of the Senate to protect our integrity.
On the substantive aspect of my manifestation, Mr. President, para lang hindi na maulit, kasi meron tayong jurisprudence, yung Ong, remember Lincoln Ong of the Parliamentary controversy, GR number 257401. Bago po ito yung leading case, March 2023. Sinabi ng Supreme Court, and I'll just mention the separate concurring opinion of the no less than the Chief Justice, Alex Gesmundo. Sinabi rito, as succinctly pointed out by the Chief Justice, Alexander G. Gesmundo, witnesses who are charged by Congress with giving false or evasive test, this is pertaining to the committee hearings, pero must be accorded stricter due process. So yung nangyari kahapon, Mr. President, and I was about to ask again, if it was a direct contempt or an indirect contempt. Because if it was an indirect contempt, all the more that they should have been asked to explain first before they were cited in contempt of the Senate and thereafter taken under the custody of the Senate. So procedurally incorrect or infirm yung ating ginawa. Kaya ko lang pinopoint out para i-correct lang natin yung ating sarili.
So, the Minority Leader, the former Senate President, first before I comment.
Yes, Mr. President. I yield.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. Do I take it that you mean that the practice that we've had before is that when a vote is taken and no one objects, those who answered the call of the roll are deemed present and are deemed that have approved?
I found out when they voted on the resolution where I interpolated Senator Pangilinan. So I was in my room, not on the floor. And I was explained to me that that's the procedure. So even under your
Correct.
Senate presidency minority leader.
Correct.
So that's why I was answering Senator Lacson that I see his point, but to my knowledge, that is the tradition.
Yes, I agree. As a matter of fact, I agree with what you said in your answer to Senator Lacson. But my point, Mr. President, then in that case, then one of us or I who have voted in favor based on our tradition would like a reconsideration, a
Of
motion for
the-
reconsideration of the motion to contempt.
To contempt.
Not
So-
because it is, again, like what Senator Lacson mentioned, it's not about, does not have anything to do with the people of the NBI or us or Senator Bato. It's only based on rules.
Yes.
Why? So, can we move for a reconsideration, Mr. President, so I can explain why?
That is your right, Minority Leader.
All right. Thank you,
so
sir.
anyone who on record voted for any motion has the right during the next day, and actually we're in the same session day, within 2 session days, and technically we're in the same session day. So it is your right to move for reconsideration. Then the Majority Leader will either adhere or will object.
All right. Correct. Thank you, Mr. President. Now, here's the point. Based on our rules, the rules of the Senate, and it is consistent with the fact of the contempt of power of the Senate is limited only during inquiries in aid of legislation. This is what the Committee on Rules will have to tackle in that particular motion to sign in contempt anyone from the session hall. The impeachment court is empowered too, but not the Senate. I cannot find it in the rules. No, Section 18 of the Senate Resolution Number 5 the rules of procedure governing inquiries and in aid of legislation provides that a chairman, with the concurrence of at least one member of the committee, may punish or cite in contempt any witness before a committee who disobeys any order of the committee or refuses to be sworn or testify or for falsely or evasively testifying. Further, as emphasized in this Senate Resolution 145, the power of contempt is inherent to the enforcement of the right to conduct inquiries in aid of legislation. So, in fact, Senate Resolution 237, such power of contempt was delegated to the subcommittees as they comprise the same membership as the main committee and should have the committee's full powers, including the power to cite and punish witnesses in contempt. All right. Now, the other instance that we are allowed to the power of contempt is during impeachment proceedings constituted as an impeachment court, not as a Senate, only in committee hearings in aid of legislation. So, the only instance that contempt is mentioned in our rules is the duty of the Sergeant at Arms to enforce a citation in contempt issued by any committee of the Senate and to detain and place under custody witnesses, etc., etc. And the jurisprudence mentioned by Senator Lacson by the Supreme Court in Uyong versus the Senate of the Philippines, the Supreme Court discussed that concomitant to the power of legislature to conduct inquiries in aid of legislation is its power of contempt impliedly provided under the 1987 Constitution. So that is my point, Mr. President. So I think we should not approve the motion to contempt right away without consulting the Committee on Rules to find out whether this is correct or not. That we can only cite in contempt, the Senate can cite in contempt when we are in aid of legislation and we are in a committee. Maybe
Before we
then-
have a ruling, let me
Yes.
just expound on the decision yesterday. The chair yesterday mentioned that in several Supreme Court decisions, as early as Arnold versus Nazareno, the Supreme Court upheld the inherent right to self-preservation of the legislative body. And the chair explained that if a committee is given a power to hold in contempt, so much more the plenary. And that there are two kinds of contempt. The indirect contempt and the direct contempt. So for example, if Maria and Pedro were now sitting in the gallery and they started shouting, if the Sergeant at Arms took them out, but they came back and they started throwing stones, we can hold them, or they had guns, we can send them for inquest, or we can hold them in contempt because it's part of self-preservation. So even in the decision mentioned by Senator Lacson has to deal with the issue at hand. The ratio decidendi, or the reason for the decision, always deals with only the issue at hand. And the issue at hand then was the contempt powers of legislation in aid of legislation. But despite that, still the Supreme Court again said, indeed, the exercise of contempt power by legislature is anchored on self-preservation. And they had a footnote from the previous cases. Having said that, I'd like to ask the pleasure of the minority leader.
Yes.
Would you like to vote on it, or would you like us to send this to the legal and then give them a day or two to, or until Monday
yeah.
to, because the problem
Yeah,
with...
I was thinking of that, Mr. President,
Yes.
if you don't mind. I'm sorry for
Yes.
interrupting
Go ahead,
you.
sir.
Because the Supreme Court itself laid down the limitations. That's why we have to discuss it perhaps in
Yes.
the committee or
Yes.
the legal. No, the first limitation: the subject hearings were conducted in aid of legislation. 1, 2. Second limitation: the assailed rules are compliant with the publication requirement of Section 21, Article 6 of the 1987 Constitution. And the third limitation is that the committee failed to accord petitioners their constitutional right to due process relative to the conduct of its proceedings. Therefore, we were in plenary session yesterday, and then we were suspended when this event was being discussed. So, again, the pleasure, really, Mr. President, if you do not mind, is that we refer the motion
Yes.
to the Committee on Rules.
We are in agreement, but just to explain, one example I gave yesterday, even if it wasn't in the rules of court, or even if there's no precedent, if we were in the Supreme Court, and while they were in hearing, I ran after or tried to arrest or tried to mug one of the justices, they can hold me in direct contempt because it's really about self-preservation. So the events yesterday was so grave that yes, we need cooler heads because we really have to discuss the problems of agriculture, the problems of the economy, problems of transportation. Naghihirap talaga mga kababayan natin. And of course, we're all aware that the House voted for impeachment yesterday, so we're all preparing for that. But at the same time, we have to show the world, including our local law enforcers, that you cannot play around with the Senate as an institution. And when you're trying to prevent a member from attending, that is direct contempt of the Senate. So I'm in agreement if we can all agree that we send it first to the
Yes.
legal, and maybe we'll invite any legal staff of all the Senate offices so that they can participate there, because it's an issue that so that we won't take one opinion, hook, line, and sinker, but get all the brilliant minds of the offices of the 24 senators, then discuss it, but and we'll hold the reconsideration in abeyance until we have that, if it's acceptable to the former Senate President.
I concur. So I so move, Mr. President.
Thank you very. So, is there any objection to the motion that the ruling, the motion and the ruling to hold in contempt will be now studied by referred and studied by our legal department, who will also invite lawyers from each and every OS or Office of the Senators or the 24 senators? If there's none, then
Mr. President, on the second point,
yes.
the second motion made by Senator Marcoleta proposing that Rule 14, Section 41B of the Senate Rules be amended by including a new Section 41C. Now, while I commend the Senate President for deferring action on the motion of the Honorable Marcoleta, but still, we should bear in mind that if we amend our rules, necessarily we should refer it to the Committee on Rules. We cannot just decide in plenary to right there and then amend the rules. If I am correct in that regard, Mr. President.
You're not only correct, that's what happened. I referred it to the
Yes,
Committee
that's
on
why
Rules.
I expressed my admiration and commendation for the action taken by the Senate President.
Yes, yes.
So we're clear on that.
Yes. My interpretation, Senator Lacson, is that was the intent of Senator Marcoleta. That because the rules is that 1 day for consideration. Yeah, for a motion, it's 1 day. I'll just paraphrase. So my interpretation, of course, I didn't stand up and go near to Senator Marcoleta, but my interpretation was that my understanding is I always have to follow the rules. We always have to follow. So when a senator makes a motion and there is a specific rule, then we will follow. But the Committee on Rules is allowed to meet right away, but that doesn't mean they can meet right away and not follow the 1 day rule.
Yeah. Thank you for the clarification, Mr.
And thank you
President.
for...
That would be all.
Yes. And to be fair to our former Senate President, Mig Subiri, he also made it very clear that our tradition is that if it is amendment of the rules, we consult and then we not only give a copy. So actually the Secretariat rewrote the proposal, and maybe I could just say that all of these were a product of what happened yesterday, no? And of course, most of us had some sleep last night. I don't know Senator Bato if he had good sleep. He told me he was not able to sleep last night, but Senator Padilla, who stayed with him, said you were sleeping very well. So, but maybe cooler heads today, and hopefully we'll get our job done. No? Yeah.
Yes,
Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr.
Thank
President.
you, Senator Lacson.
Thank you, Mr. President, and also just to put on record, this representation, when this representation filed that motion, I was actually asking the plenary during that time about the possibility of looking into that particular incident. But anyway, Mr. President, we just also want to put on record that what we are trying to approve, Mr. President, the journal of the 61st session Wednesday was last May 6, Mr. President, not yesterday. So just to put that on record, it's May 6, 2026 was last week, and that is the motion that we are putting.
So any
on the
objection
table.
that we approve the journal of the session of Wednesday, May 6, 2026? If there's no objection or amendments, the motion is approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. And before we proceed, may I just put into the records, Mr. President, our gratitude and thanks for our guests who are here with us, guests of Senator Padilla, the Bangsamoro women from Barangay Maharlika, Taguig City. Mr. President, they are here. Guests of Senator Ontiveros, LGU officials of Bulalakaw, Oriental Mindoro, led by Mayor Lumelito Cabagay. We welcome them in this August chamber, Mr. President.
You're recognized and welcome. No?
Mr. President,
Maybe, Majority Leader, in behalf also of the Senate, I also apologize to those who had to stay longer within the Senate yesterday while we were identifying the agents who ran after Senator Bato. I think even former CHED head Popoy Jevara and many others were here. And Senator Pia also reminded me that there are hearings scheduled, and just to inform the body, the tradition is even if the positions are vacant, you can continue with the scheduled hearings because they are the same members and the chairman is automatically a member. Senator Bam Aquino?
Mr. President, I'd like to clarify. There's a BICAM scheduled for Thursday
Yes.
on the voucher bill, which has been passed on third reading here and in the House. Shall we also continue with the BICAM for the voucher program, Mr.
Yeah,
President?
if there's no objection, I think we should all continue. And in fact, I'm hoping to have a all Senator caucus soon. I just don't know if today or tomorrow to discuss the committees and to even consult the minority even before we offer certain committees. But anything that is pending and should be, I think the only things that are technically on hold is new hearings and the sponsorships on the floor pending designation of chairman.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
the
you for
clarification,
asking
Mr.
that.
President.
Mr. President,
Senator
Senator Pangilinan is
Pangilinan.
also seeking the floor.
It's just a clarification as regards the hearings of the committees that can be conducted. When we say we will not be conducting new hearings, does this exclude hearings that were suspended and will just be, under our rules, allowed to resume as the hearings have yet to be terminated?
So the tradition is if there's a vacancy in the chairmanship, there's a vice chairman that takes over. But if the vacancy is in all, the
Which is the case, Mr. President,
yeah,
because
in all, the chairman can continue the hearings that are ongoing.
Okay.
So my interpretation is, let's say you had a hearing today, you conducted it, then you say the next hearing is Monday. But we hope to finish the committees by Monday in consultation with everyone so that hindi nga maipit lahat ng trabaho natin.
So with the understanding, Mr. President, that this suspension of our rules by unanimous consent,
It's not a suspension, it's a tradition that is consistent with the rules. Because when you're chairman, you're automatically still a member of that. Yes. I'm telling you what the Secretariat informed me yesterday because Senator Pia called me and called my attention and told me na presyo ng kuryente yung hearing niya. So unless we designate her again as chairman of energy. So I consulted the secretariat and they mentioned the tradition that you don't have to cancel the hearing.
Just a question, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr.
Thank you.
Independent.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Independent leader, there's two of you.
There's two of us, two independent leaders here. But Mr. President, just a quick question. Yes, because it's a bit confusing to our colleagues when they asked about their committee reports. Some are already supposed to be handled on the floor, the committee hearings, because I can recall that the motion yesterday was all positions vacant. So if it's all positions vacant, that would also mean the memberships,
Yes.
Mr. President.
Because that's correct.
Yeah, so I'm just asking for clarification so that we can be guided accordingly. If we do, then we have to reorganize really quickly.
That's why, Mr. President, if I may suggest, by unanimous consent, we can suspend our rules. And I would like to think that would be the better route in terms of allowing hearings to be conducted by former committee chairpersons and former members until Monday, as the Senate President earlier mentioned, that you would have disposed of the issue by Monday.
Yes. I am
Mr.
overwhelmed
President.
by the number of brilliant minds and former Senate Presidents. So with your permission to answer the question, former Senate President Escudero will
Yes,
give his
Mr.
input.
President. To lend some clarity to the issue at hand, I would like to read and spread onto the record Section 19 of our own rules. The chairman and the members of the permanent committee shall commence in the exercise of their duties upon their election. They shall cease when their successors shall have been elected or designated. So my understanding, given the plain meaning of this rule, is that the chairmen, although their positions were respectively declared vacant to avoid a void, shall continue until their successors shall have been designated and or elected. My understanding further is that should there be any BICAM that needs to be done or finished within this week until their successor shall have been elected, then it should proceed so as not to cause any undue delay without need of suspending the rules, Mr. President. I submit, Mr. President.
Yes.
Again, Mr. President, it's it's the point. Well, the motion yesterday was to declare the positions
Yes.
vacant. So there is no chair, there is no vice chair, there are no members. So how can a committee convene or continue with its proceedings when there is no chairman, there are no members? Members and chairpersons and vice chairpersons are elected.
As a matter of courtesy and tradition,
And that's why, yes,
instead of just saying the name and then replacing the chairman, which happens in certain instances with the permission of the two individuals, when there is a leadership change, usually there's a question of the chairmanship. So there's sometimes a motion to declare all positions vacant. But that is the brilliance of the rules. The rule is very clear. The chairman and the members of the permanent committee shall commence in the exercise of their election of their duties, and they shall cease when their successor have been elected or designated. So out of prudence, usually in controversial hearings and in new bills, etc. So for example, if the divorce bill is very controversial, and let's say Senator Villanueva was hearing it, and then he was replaced, usually he will not call another hearing out of prudence and respect for the body. But let's say he was hearing something about nutrition that everyone accepts. He would probably continue his hearing. But actually, this will all soon be moot and academic because probably by tomorrow and Monday, we will start and finish reading all of the chairmanships. And you usually have to have 3-day notice. So even if you want to have a hearing Monday or Tuesday, you have to have the notice tomorrow. So by Monday, we'll have all of this settled. I just mentioned it because Senator Pia reminded me about her hearing, and then I read some comments about some important matters and the cancellation. No? So it was really meant to address the present situation, maybe today, tomorrow, and Friday, if everyone has the pleasure of hearing on Friday, which includes Senator Bam, napaka-importante matapos natin yung voucher program. No?
Well, Mr. President, if I may suggest, so that we can dispense with this, is let's just suspend the rules with unanimous consent, with the understanding that this is to be a suspension until Monday when the matter has been resolved
the
by the election of new
The problem is if you
chairpersons.
suspend the rule, you'll suspend Section 19, then it will be worse because there'll be no...
Well, Mr. President, the trouble also with Section 19 is that it assumes there is a chairperson and a vice chairperson and members. We already declared all positions vacant. There are no chairpersons today. There are no vice chairpersons today. There are no members of all these committees today. So when you say they shall cease, they meaning as chairperson, as vice chairperson, and as members. But that's not the case. We declared all positions vacant.
Yes, and it is vacant, but they can continue until their successors have been elected. It is taught in law school that when there are rules, you have to interpret it in a logical way that makes it work. So there will be no reason for this rule if in fact we did not remove chairman, because then the rule would simply be the vice chairman would take over, the senior member, etc. So actually this rule takes care of any situation, including, for example, if 3 senators have resigned and have joined the executive department, and then every member from that committee resigned. Then they will continue to be vice chairman and committee members. If it's your pleasure, Senator, and I sort of see your point, but I see the logic of Senator, we can refer it to the Committee on Rules.
Yes, I think that would be better, Mr. President, so that we can get a clear definition or a clear ruling or a recommended ruling from the Committee on Rules and legal interpretation of this particular rule.
Thank you for bringing that up. No?
Thank you,
And
Mr.
at least we'll clear it up so that those who have important hearings will not need to cancel it.
Well,
So-
but just on that point, Mr. President, the reason why I'm raising this is because we do have committee reports that we are ready to submit. And so we would like to be clear as to, can we still submit these committee reports today, tomorrow? Can we still sponsor committee reports that have been submitted tomorrow or maybe even Monday? Because we do have committee reports that we can sponsor.
So, preliminarily, if you follow the rule, Section 19, you can. But prudence, usually, on controversial bills, they do not, because the ratio between minority and majority also changes, and sometimes the alignments are ideological, sometimes the alignments are political, sometimes the bill are the same. So it really depends, no?
Yes,
But again, the new majority will endeavor to finish the reorganization latest Monday. No?
Okay, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Just for the
So
record.
the comments are on the record and referred to the Committee on Rules.
Yes, Mr. President. And just for the record, we were supposed to sponsor 2 measures on under as chairman of the Committee on Justice on the citizenships of 2 the principal sponsor, Senator Bongo and Senator Pia Cayetano.
Are they here today?
They were here yesterday, but I want to know if we can schedule it
Yes.
tomorrow.
Majority Leader,
Mr. President.
may I request that you discuss with Senator Pangilinan and the 2 sponsors? Maybe we can accommodate tomorrow.
Because there is a timeline as
Yes.
to the... okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. We will be ready tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. President.
We'll do that, Mr. President, and I hope the real majority leader will be elected soon, Mr. President. Mr. President, at this juncture, and just to
You mean
give
the
our
permanent,
colleagues,
permanent majority leader,
colleagues
not
the opportunity to vote on 3rd reading, Mr. President, may I respectfully move to consider on 3rd reading of bills. Mr. President, the printed copies of these bills were electronically distributed to the members on May 8, 2026. in compliance with the 3-day rule in the Constitution. And so with that, Mr. President, I move to approve on third and final reading Senate Bill number 1894, this bill enhancing the Universal Access to Quality Tertiary Education Act. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? There being none, consideration of Senate Bill number 1894 on third reading is in order. The Senate Secretary is directed to read the title of the bill and proceed with the voting.
Senate Bill number 1894, an act enhancing the Universal Access to Quality Tertiary Education Act, amending for the purpose of Public Act number 10931. Roll call of members. Senator Aquino. Senator Cayetano Pia. Senator De La Rosa. Senator Ejercito. Senator Escudero. Senator Estrada. Senator Gatchalian. Senator Go. Senator Hontiveros. Senator Lacson. Senator Lapid, Senator Legarda, Senator Marcoleta, Senator Marcos, Senator Padilla, Senator Pangilinan, Senator Soto, Senator Tulfo Erwin, Senator Tulfo Rafi, Senator Villanueva, Senator Villar Camil, Senator Villar Mark, Senator Subiri, Senate President Cayetano Alan.
With 21 affirmative votes, 0 negative vote, 0 abstention, Senate Bill number 1894 is approved on third reading.
Thank you, Mr. President. We congratulate the authors, especially the chairperson of the Senate Committee on Higher and Technical Education, our Senate President Pro Tem, Senator Lauren Legarda.
Those who want to be co-sponsors can just manifest to the majority leader.
Yeah. I think everyone, Mr. President,
Everyone who's present is already
wanted to be part of this measure.
and when it's unanimous, even those who are not sitting down there are included. So far, no. Those physically present and voted.
Just
Okay.
physically present,
Yes.
Mr.
Upon
President.
clarification of Senator Lacson.
Just
That's a good
physically
clarification.
present. And that is very clear right now. Mr. President, I move that we approve on third reading Senate Bill number 1966. This is the bill institutionalizing the assistance to individuals in crisis situation. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? There being none, consideration of Senate Bill number 1966 on third reading is in order. The Senate Secretary is directed to read the title of the bill and proceed with the voting.
Senate Bill number 1966, an act institutionalizing the assistance to individuals in crisis situations program of the Department of Social Welfare and Development, providing penalties for the violation of certain unlawful acts and appropriating funds therefore. Roll call of members. Senator Aquino, Senator Cayetano Pia, Senator De La Rosa, Senator Ejercito, Senator Escudero, Senator Estrada, Senator Gatchalian, Senator Go, Senator Hontiveros, Senator Lacson, Senator Lapid, Senator Legarda, Senator Marcoleta, Senator Marcos, Senator Padilla, Senator Pangilinan, Senator Soto, Senator Tulfo Erwin, Senator Tulfo Rafi, Senator Villanueva, Senator Villar Camil, Senator Villar Mark, Senator Subiri, Senate President Cayetano Alan.
With 22 affirmative votes, 0 negative vote, 0 abstention, Senate Bill number 1966 is approved on third reading.
Thank you, Mr. President. We'd like to congratulate all the authors led by the chairperson of the committee, Senator Erwin Tulfo. Mr. President, the good gentleman is seeking the floor. May
Senator, with the
Mr.
indulgence
President,
of
be-
Senator
before we
Tulfo.
recognize Senator
Yeah.
Erwin Tulfo, there is a
Yeah, just a point of clarification.
there's a
Yes.
point of clarification. Maybe
Senator Lacson
acknowledge
is
that.
recognized.
Yes, I would just like to be clarified, Mr. President. In what capacity is Senator Pangilinan sponsoring his a committee report tomorrow? I have a suggestion along that line. Maybe
Yes.
the body can designate him as, no, in holdover capacity. so he can be, officially
That's a
capacitated.
good suggestion, just to align in pursuant with Section 19.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. So if there are no objections, thank you for the suggestion, Senator Lacson. Senator Erwin Tulfo.
Thank you, Mr. President. A quick manifestation. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, as your outgoing chairperson of the Senate Committee on Social Justice, Welfare, and Rural Development, I wish to place on record my profound gratitude and deep appreciation as this August chamber approves on third reading Senate Bill number 1966 under Committee Report number 46 entitled The Assistance to Individuals in Crisis Situation, or AICS Act. This legislation goes beyond merely institutionalizing assistance. It institutionalizes the spirit of malasakit in public service. More importantly, it affirms our collective duty as a public servant to ensure that in times of hardship and uncertainty, government responds not with indifference, but with urgency, compassion, and decisive action for the welfare of every Filipino. Sa gitna po ng hirap at pangangailangan, hindi dapat pinapabayaan ng ating mga kababayan. Ang tulong ng pamahalaan ay dapat mabilis, maayos at may malasakit. Mr. President, allow me to extend my sincerest gratitude to all the authors who stood behind this measure. Senator Amy Marcos, Senator Christopher Bongo, Senator Jingo Estrada, to Senator Joel Villanueva, who conveyed his intention to be made co-author of this significant bill. Thank you, Madam and Sirs. Your support reflects our shared belief that public service must always put people first. Maraming salamat po sa inyong dedikasyon at tunay na malasakit sa sambayan ng Pilipino. The significance of the AICS program becomes even more evident during periods of national and global uncertainty, when ordinary Filipinos are most vulnerable to the effects of economic disruption. Sa panahon po ng krisis, higit na naramdaman ng ating mga kababayan ang pangangailangan ng agarang tulong at tunay na malasakit mula po sa ating pamahalaan. Amid the recent tensions involving Iran and resulting volatility in global oil prices, assistance mechanism under AICS program became an important source of relief for many Filipinos, particularly in transport drivers and operators who bore the heavy burden of rising fuel costs. Sa patuloy na pagtaas ng presyo ng langis, maraming super at operator ang nahirapang maitawid po, Ginoong Pangulo, ang araw-araw na pangangailangan ng kanilang pamilya. Through timely emergency assistance and fuel subsidy interventions, our government was able to provide much-needed relief and help lighten the daily burden of those who, despite rising costs and personal sacrifices, continue to keep our communities connected, our economy moving forward. Sa pamagitan po ng agarang tulong mula sa AICS, na ipapakita po natin na ang pamahalaan may malasakit ay hindi po nagpapabaya, lalo na sa mga manggagawang patuloy na nagsasakripisyo para sa sambayanan. To the committee's technical working groups, partner agencies, and hardworking personnel behind this legislation, we thank you for transforming compassion into concrete action. To my distinguished colleagues, may we continue to craft laws that are not only responsive but humane. Law that recognizes that governance is not merely about programs and budgets, but about people, dignity, and hope. Ang pagpasa po ng AICS Act ay isang matibay na patunay na ang pamahalaan ay may malasakit, ay pamahalaang tunay na kumakalinga, handa lagi umalalay, umunawa at tumugon sa pangangailangan ng bawat Pilipino sa oras po ng kagipitan. Again, Mr. President, to all the authors and supporters of the AICS Act, thank you for your unity, compassion, and unwavering commitment to the Filipino people. We stand united, no matter what political colors we have. There is no crisis too great that we cannot overcome. Muli po, maraming salamat sa aking mga kasamahan, both in the majority and minority, at sa sambayan ng Pilipino. Thank you and good afternoon, Ginoong
Well,
Pangulo.
the chair recognizes the work of the good senator in social justice and social welfare. Very well taken ang manifestation, except the part that he said he will be leaving the committee. We're not yet that sure, as we recognize your work in that committee. Thank you for your manifestation. Senator,
Mr. President, next to explain her vote, especially on Senate Bill number 1894, is the distinguished lady from Antique, the Chairperson of the Senate Committee on Higher and Technical Education, Senator Lauren Legarda. I move that she be recognized, Mr. President.
Mr. President, esteemed colleagues, I would like to thank all our colleagues in the unanimous vote on the free tertiary education amendments. And we know that this measure strengthens RA 10931 and ensures the promise of free and equitable tertiary education, that it truly reaches the poorest Filipino families. EDCOM 2 revealed stark gaps in the implementation of student assistance programs. Many of our most vulnerable learners continue to struggle with the rising cost of transportation, food, housing, and school requirements despite existing support mechanisms. This bill ensures that limited government resources are directed first to those who need them most, aligns allocation strictly with household income, guarantees timely inflation-adjusted support, and demands accountability for the use of public funds. Ang edukasyon ay hindi lang dapat libre, dapat ito'y makabuluhan at nagubungan ng tunay na oportunidad mula enrollment hanggang graduation at trabaho. This measure is for our students, especially the poorest, who now know that the government stands behind their dreams. Dapat laging patas ang pagbibigay ng pagkakataon sa bawat batang Pilipino na nangangarap. I would like to thank my fellow EDCOM 2 commissioners, Senator Bam Aquino, Senator Joel Villanueva, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, Senator Alan Peter Cayetano, now Senate President, as well as Senator Pia Cayetano, Senator Christopher Lawrence Go, Senator Francis Escudero, Senator Jinggoy Ejercito Estrada, Senator Risa Ontiveros, Senator J.V. Ejercito, Senator Rafi Tulfo, Senator Robin Padilla, and Senator Kiko Pangilinan for your steadfast support. I express my deep gratitude to all who joined in advancing this measure. And just to take note that the House of Representatives had already passed this measure on third reading. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before I ask for this representation's recognition, Mr. President, our dear colleague, Senator Risa Ontiveros, is seeking the floor. May I move that she be recognized, Mr. President?
Yeah. Senator Ontiveros is recognized. And we thank Senator Legarda for her explanation of the vote.
Salamat po, Mr. President. Inquiry, Mr. President, in line dun sa action ng body natin regarding Senator Pangilinan on the suggestion of Senator Lacson. Two inquiries, Mr. President. For clarity, Mr. President, dahil this representation is the former chair of the Senate Committee on Women and also former chair of the Senate Committee on Health. Kanina po kasi ang conversation nga ay tungkol sa committee hearings for bills that are ready for amendments on the floor. Halimbawa itong apat, Mr. President. So, ang unang inquiry ko po, would I still be allowed to introduce the amendments as former chair in relation po to the action of the body on holdover capacity of Senator Pangilinan in his former committee, Mr. President?
So, as to introducing individual amendments as a senator, of course, that's always your right. But as to sponsoring, the majority leader and myself will be discussing all the pending bills on the floor when we go in caucus right after this, and we hope to ask for a all-member caucus by tomorrow to discuss that, but also to discuss the articles of impeachment.
Salamat, Mr. President, and this representation anticipates the response of the Senate President and the Majority Leader. Just to add one detail on the anti-hospital detention bill, ang particular status po niyan, Mr. President, is babasahin na lang yung amendments. Okay. And then, pending the decision of the body, pwede na pong i-close on second reading. Second and last inquiry for now, Mr. President, regarding the bills that are for interpellation, because lastly, this representation is also former chair of the Senate Committee on Electoral Reforms. Bills, Mr. President, like the party list reform, the anti-political dynasty bill, and then also within the Committee on Health, the UHC Medical Assistance Program and the Healthcare Proxy Act. So again, Mr. President, should this representation continue to sponsor and defend them on the floor, or is it correct that the leadership change has prevented this, Mr. President?
Same answer, and to be completely honest, because Senator Villanueva has not accepted the position of Majority Floor Leader, so I cannot assign him to go to the former chairpersons to get their pleasure yet, because he has only agreed to be acting floor leader. But after our caucus this afternoon, tomorrow, we should have a regular, not real, a permanent majority leader, at least until the body would like to pick someone else. No?
Maraming salamat, Mr. President, and I
we'd
know
also
that...
the chair would like to thank you for your work on the Committee on Health.
Thank you, Mr. President. And this representation knows that the Senate President is also keenly aware kung ganong katagal at katinding iniintay itong mga bills ng mga iba't ibang stakeholders at partners ng Senado, including mga children's rights advocates, syempre yung mga lahat ng pasyenteng Pilipino at mga pamilya po nila, yung ating mga barangay health workers, yung mga political reform advocates, among others, Mr. President. Salamat po, Mr. President.
Just for the answer regarding your query as far as the rules are concerned, because the author of the bill can also sponsor, a member of the committee can also sponsor, and the former chair is a member of the committee. So technically, you can. So it's just a matter of the majority leader and the new majority would like that on the floor at the moment. And again, I thank you. I thank Senator Pia, Senator Loren, Senator Bongo on your work on the Committee on Health. I was informed recently, hindi na naman nabid or hindi pa nabibid, that's 2 weeks ago, yung flu vaccines. And meron dalawang hemisphere yan southern and northern. No? Yung sa atin, patapos na or tapos na by now, patapos na ata, hindi pa rin nabibid. So we really need the Department of Health to shape up. No? And your work during your term as chairman of the Committee on Health is appreciated. Thank you.
Mr. President, Senator Mark Villar is also seeking the floor to explain his vote. I move that he be recognized, Mr. President.
Senator Mark Villar is recognized.
Mr. President, allow me to explain my yes vote and my unyielding support for Senate Bill number 1894, or the Act Enhancing the Universal Access to Quality Tertiary Education Act. Mr. President, Republic Act number 10931, or the Universal Access to Quality Tertiary Education Act, was enacted to provide adequate funding and similar mechanisms to increase the participation rate among all socio-economic classes in tertiary education. While the law provides for free tuition, it does not cover the incidental expenses of studying and going to school in college. Mr. President, maraming kabataang Pilipino ang gusto makapagtapos ng kolehiyo, ngunit walang sapat na pinansyal na kakayahan upang tustusan ang pang-araw-araw na gastusin sa eskwelahan. Bagaman libre ang tuition fee, mahirap para sa ilan nating mga kababayan ang tiyakin na mayroon silang gagastusin sa pamasahe at pagkain pagpasok sa eskwelahan. Kung kaya, Mr. President, napipilitan ng marami na tumigil sa pag-aaral para magtrabaho upang tustusan ang pang-araw-araw na gastusin ng sarili at ng kanilang pamilya. Sa pag-aproba natin ng panukalang ito, wala nang estudyante ang mapipilitang magtrabaho upang tustusan ang kanilang pag-aaral. Posible na makapag-focus na sila sa kanilang pag-aaral at hindi naiisipin kung saan kukunin ang panggastos. Mr. President, this bill will narrow the gap between the objectives of the free tertiary education law and the glaring realities on the ground faced by the underprivileged and marginalized. Again, I would like to thank the distinguished lady from Antique, Senator Loren Legarda, for shepherding this bill, and of course, Senator Bam Aquino for initially championing this measure in these very halls. With the indulgence of the good sponsor, again, you mentioned it earlier, but I'd just like to reiterate that I would also like to be made a co-author of this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you,
Thank you
Senator
very much,
Villar.
Senator Villar.
May I be allowed, Mr. President, just to give a very short explanation on this particular measure, because this is also our pet bill, Mr. President.
If you accept the position of majority leader, then you can proceed.
Thank you for being considerate, Mr. President. Mr. President, we vote yes on the proposed amendments to the Universal Access to Quality Tertiary Education Act. When we enacted, Mr. President, this RA 10931 during the 17th Congress, we opened the doors of higher education to millions of young Filipinos. But as the findings of EDCOM 2 have shown, access alone is not enough. Many students continue to face learning gaps, financial pressures, and other barriers that prevent them from completing their education. Now, through the work of EDCOM 2, particularly, Mr. President, in our role as chairperson of the Standing Committee on Technical Vocational Education and Training and Lifelong Learning, we have seen the urgent need to strengthen support systems for learners and make our education system more responsive to present realities. These amendments move us closer to that goal by improving the delivery and targeting of tertiary education support and ensuring that more students are not able to enter school but also complete their education successfully. Kaya, Ginoong Pangulo, hindi lamang po ito usapin ng libreng matrikula, ito po ay usapin ng tunay na oportunidad at mas magandang kinabukasan para sa ating mga kabataan. Muli, binabati natin si Senator Loren Legarda for sponsoring and defending this measure and our co-authors. For these reasons, Mr. President, and as author and co-sponsor of this measure, we reiterate our yes vote. Itaas po natin ang antas ng edukasyon sa Pilipinas. Maraming salamat po and may God bless us all. Thank you. Mr. President, Senator Risa Ontiveros is seeking the floor. I move that she be recognized.
Thank you, Majority Leader, for your explanation of vote. Senator Risa Ontiveros.
Salamat po, Mr. President. Mr. President, I vote yes to the Enhancing the Universal Access to Quality Tertiary Education Act. The Free Higher Education Law transformed millions of lives, but delays in subsidies and funding gaps have failed many students and strained our SUCs and LUCs. Since 2022, my office has received complaints from students whose tertiary education subsidy arrived late or never arrived at all. Some were forced to stop schooling because they could no longer afford to stay enrolled. Hindi dapat pinapabayaan ang mga estudyanteng nagsisikap makapagtapos. This measure strengthens accountability. It requires UNIFAS to improve and speed up subsidy disbursement and establishes an accessible grievance mechanism so students can report problems and seek redress. Importante rin na sa wakas, prioridad na ang mga pinakamahihirap, lalo na ang mga pamilyang kabilang sa 4Ps. Pinalalawak din ito ang oportunidad para sa mga solo parents at persons with disabilities. Matagal nang sinasalo ng ating state universities and colleges ang kakulangan sa pondo para sa free higher education. Dahil dito, napipilitan silang bawasan ang ibang mahahalagang gastusin at tumanggi sa mga kwalipikadong estudyante. Tinutugunan ng panukalang ito ang problemang iyon sa pamamagitan ng paggarantya ng funding deficiencies sa susunod na GAA. Kung seryoso tayo sa tunay na universal access to education, kailangan nating siguraduhin na walang estudyante ang naiiwan at walang paaralan ang napapabayaan. I vote yes. Salamat po, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Ontiveros. Pag-suspend natin.
Mr. President, Senator Legarda is seeking the floor. I move that she be recognized, Mr. President.
The Senate President Pro Tempore, Senator Legarda, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, ang AIX ay isa sa pinakamahalagang tulong ng pamahalaan para sa mga Pilipinong biglaang nahaharap sa krisis, pagkakasakit, aksidente, pagkamatay ng mahal sa buhay, pagkasunog, pagkawala ng hanap buhay, at maraming iba pang matinding pangangailangan. Sa pamamagitan ng panukalang ito, binibigyan natin ng AIX ng malinaw at permanenteng batayang legal. Hindi na lamang ito aasa sa mga issuances at taunang pondo, Magkakaroon na ito ng malinaw na mandato, mas maayos na sistema, mas matibay na pananagutan. Mahalaga ring maipasok natin ang mga amyenda upang mas malinaw ang data, mga privacy safeguards, mga maayos ang koordinasyon sa LGUs at mas malinaw ang ugnayan ng AIC's medical assistance sa iba pang health assistance programs ng ating pamahalaan. Pinatitibay din ng panukala ang mga pananggalang laban sa pang-aabuso, sa pamumulitika, sa katiwalian, panggigipit sa mga benepisyaryo. Ang ayuda ay dapat makakarating sa nangangailangan, hindi sa pamamagitan ng palakasan, padrino o politika. Mr. President, sa oras ng krisis, ang tulong ay dapat mabilis, patas, may malasakit. Para sa ating mga kababayang nasa kaagipitan ng bawat araw ng paghihintay ay dagdag na pasanin. Kaya ako po'y nagpapasalamat kay Senator Erwin Tulfo na binigyan niya ito ng prioridad at ito ay magiging permanente ng batas at hindi na tayo aasa lamang taon-taon kung anong ilalagay ng ating pamahalaan. Dahil po dito, buwaboto ako ng oo sa panukalang institutionalization of the AICS program. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Legarda.
Mr. President,
Majority Leader.
Senator Bongo wishes to explain his vote. I move that he be recognized, Mr. President.
The Chair recognizes Senator Bongo.
Mr. President, I rise to explain my yes vote on Senate Bill 1894, a measure that seeks to amend Republic Act Number 10931 or the Universal Access to Quality Tertiary Education. Ito po yung final ko naman po ay Expanded Free Tertiary Education. Ngayon po ay pinangalanan na po ito na an act enhancing the Universal Access to Quality Tertiary Education Act, amending for the purpose Republic Act Number 10931. Kahit bago pa po ako naging senador, I have been a strong advocate for education at ako po'y naniniwala na ang edukasyon po'y pundasyon ng bawat kabataan at dala-dala nila ito hanggang sa kanilang pagtanda. At naniniwala po ako na ang kabataan po ang kinabukasan ng ating bayan. Noong 2017, nilagdaan po ni former President Rodrigo Duterte ang Republic Act Number 10931. Naging libre po ang tuition sa ating mga state universities and colleges. Isa itong makasaysayang hakbang tungo sa mas pantay na oportunidad at mas maayos na kinabukasan para sa kabataang Pilipino. We thank the champions of this law in the 17th Congress, headed by the principal sponsor, Senator Bam Aquino, who fought it to make it possible, Senator Mig Subiri, na pinaglaban rin po ito, marami pa iba, then Senate President Tito Soto, mga kasamahan natin na dito, Senator Lacson, Senator Riza. Hindi pa po ako senador nito noon. Senator Kiko Pangilinan, Senator Gatchalian, Senator Estrada, sino pa ba? Hindi, Senator J.B. Ercito, Senator Ligarda, Senator Pia Cayetano. Marami pong nakipaglaban during the 17th Congress. But during cabinet deliberations, talagang meron pong kumukontra dyan ng mga finance managers. At they recommended sa presidente na i-veto po ito dahil karagdagang gasto sa gobyerno. Concerns were raised by economic managers regarding its fiscal impact. But we stood firm in our belief that free education is an investment in the future of our nation. Muntik na po itong mabito. Alam po ni Chairman Popoy Jevara yan. Ngunit nung panahon po na bilang Special Assistant to the President po ako noon, hinikayat natin ang CHED na ipaglaban at ipaliwanag ang kahalagahan ng panukalang ito. Last minute po ito na sumulat ang ating CHED Chairperson Popoy Jevara. Sabi ko, sumulat ka kay then President Duterte at makiusap ka. At dinala natin ito sa kanya. And we are grateful na nagbago po ang isip ng Executive Department. And we are grateful to former President Duterte na finally pinirmahan po niya. Dahil sabi niya, sa Davao nga po, merong free education doon. At meron siya mga scholarships program po doon kahit na maliliit. Sabi niya, mas gusto ko sa buong Pilipinas po ito mangyayari. Finally, the rest is history at naging batas po ito. Even with the Republic Act 10931 in place, we recognize many challenges in accessing education. Kaya naman po, napakahalaga ng panukalang batas na ito. We thank the sponsor, Senator Loren Ligarda, for championing this measure. Mr. President, sa panukalang ito, bago ko makalimutan si Senator Alan, nung membro po siya ng 17th Congress noon, na I'm sure sinuportahan niya rin po ito, but naging Secretary of Foreign Affairs kayata nung mga panahong yon. I don't know kung senator ka pa during that time, but membro ka po ng 17th Congress at I'm sure pinaglaban mo rin po ito. Sa panukalang ito, Mr. President, hangad natin na mabigyan ng tertiary education subsidy ang mga indigent patients. Ibig sabihin, expanded, may pagpipilian sila. Yung mga lugar na walang yung kurso na ino-offer ay hindi nila ma-avail, ay pwede itong ma-avail po sa mga private universities. Hindi lamang po ito sa mga public colleges and universities. Maaari rin po itong gamitin sa private higher education institutions, lalo na kung walang available na pampublikong paaralan sa kanilang lugar. At naniniwala po ako na ang access sa education ay susi sa mas maliwanag na kinabukasan para sa ating mga kabataan. For these reasons, I am putting on record my yes vote for the passage of this very important education measure. Salamat, Mr. President. And likewise, as one of the authors of Senate Bill number 1966, which seeks to institutionalize the assistance to individual in crisis situations. Ito po yung AIX, kilalang-kilala po ito na programa ng DSWD. I want to manifest my yes vote to the measure. Sa pag-iikot ko po sa buong bansa, I have seen families who have lost everything, homes, livelihoods, and in some cases, hope. Ang AIX ay matagal nang nagsisilbing lifeline ng ating mga mahihirap na kababayan, lalong-lalo na po sa panahong sila ay naharap sa biglaang krisis tulad ng sakuna, sunog, pagkakasakit, pagkamatay ng mahal sa buhay, aksidente at iba pang hindi inaasahang pangyayari. By institutionalizing AIX, we guarantee its continuity and enhance its ability to adapt and respond to the growing needs of our communities. Sana po wag lang gamitin sa politika ang AIX at dapat po gamitin ito sa mga mahirap nating kababayan. Klarong-klaro naman po ang AIX. Assistance to individuals in crisis situations. Ibig sabihin, yung mga mahihirap talaga. At wag sana gamitin sa pamumulitika ang ayuda at tulong sa ating mga kababayan. We congratulate and thank the sponsor, Senator Erwin Tulfo, for prioritizing this measure. With this bill, we affirm to the Filipino people that in times of crisis, the government stands ready to extend a helping hand. Maraming salamat po, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Bongo. Just on your point na sana wag magamit sa politika and for the information of the public who have a keen eye on the Senate, actually maganda na carry over yung amendment ni Senator Lacson sa 2026 budget, yung prohibition on political involvement in the distribution of cash and other forms of financial assistance is in Section 18. Sa Section 19 naman, prohibition on the display and or a fixture of the name, image, likeness of public officials. So yung suggestion ni Senator Lacson na kineri ng body nung sa 2026 budget, nandito. Tapos may Section 20, Unlawful Acts. Unfortunately, ang Section 18 and 19, walang